All right. So I'd like to welcome everyone to the Prove It Live podcast. It has a little connotation. My name is Kevin McGovern. I'm a physical therapist, and this is our first live show. And this is part of the Area Scouts Network, which is a new company that we decided it would be a great time to start after 8 years of development, pretty much right in the middle of a pandemic. However, the product that there is so good that it's actually kind of taken off. And what Area Scouts does is essentially it's an algorithmic platform that houses athlete statistics. Right now, we're doing baseball and softball. And way back when, as a physical therapist, and some people in the crowd here may attest to this, I was a jerk. I was the person who sat in the back of the class and said, yeah, whatever. Okay, prove it to me, prove it. And when I got out of school, I did the same thing. And physical therapy hasn't evolved at all since like 1950. If it did, there wouldn't be places like CrossFit and Massage Envy and all these places that take cash, lots of cash, which is good for them, and handling stuff that physical therapists should really do and be experts at, because that's what we went to school for. But people will lay down, I think Fitness Together might be minimum package $2,500. People will lay that down 10 times more than they would pay a physical therapist for the same money. And even a physical therapist is 500 times the expert. And the reason for that, I think, is we're essentially failing as a society. We're as a society of therapists. We're infighting, and we're not getting people better. We're doing the same lame things that we did in 1985 that we're doing now, and it's showing in our outcomes. It's showing, especially on the athletic field. So I began a practice in 1999. And I realized when getting out of school, there was, even though I all passed the same entrance exam to get license exam to get in, there was a difference in what we learned. I went to Northeastern University, where the N stands for knowledge. I'm just kidding. Very good physical therapy school. And, we had some teachers that taught differently, I think, than other things, from a kind of a spine out kind of perspective. And that's kind of how I learned. So as I had this practice and began to grow, I saw that, one day I would see one thing and then I'd see someone doing another thing, and it really wasn't adding up to me. So I needed a test. I needed to find a test that everyone could do, because all the tests in physical therapy are about diagnostics. Do this, you've got a rotator cuff tear. You do this, you got a labral tear of the hip. I don't care what you have. I never did. My goal as a therapist and my goal for my practice was always to move better with less pain. And if you did that, we did our job. I don't care if you had toe fungus to, a broken neck. It didn't matter. Our job as a therapist was to move better with less pain. But because of Big Brother, and that would be the insurance companies, we always had to have a diagnosis. What's the diagnosis? Oh my God, I need an MRI. All this stuff about diagnosis, and none of that really matters. And today it's still the same thing. What's the diagnosis? There's 10 diagnoses. What's the code? What's this? How about getting the patient to move better? So all the tests that were out there, although good and had their place, really didn't fit an outpatient practice that you would see grandma to an Olympic athlete in the same practice. So what happened was I kind of been, going over stuff to finally realize that the one thing that grandma and the Olympic athlete have in common is initial sequence of movement, which, I wasn't the guy who was going to do a lot of research. I like things that were already researched for me, kind of already done for me, the Cliff Note version. And that was the book of kinesiology. And one woman on the call can attest that my kinesiology teacher, I sat in the front row of that class because that class had Beverly Yeager, a 6-foot-tall former tennis pro. So I sat just because my hearing wasn't very good. So I sat in the front just to make sure I could hear while she wasn't a very loud talker. So that class is really what I think is missing for physical therapy. We are not studying, basically kinesiology is a study of human movement, and it's law, A to B to C. It's math. And that's what I saw missing out there, and that's what I saw missing in physical therapy. So to make a long story short, I created a test called, which was called back then, which had a better name. I think I called it the McGovern Movement Screen, but that really wasn't that catchy. So later on, I called it and actually have the word, believe it or not, copywritten. I own the copyright to the word game, and that stands for Graded Active Movement Exam. And that's exactly what it does. It measures or quantifies human movement from its inception to completion, and very functional movements that everyone has to do, and everyone has to be able to do these movements. Your Olympic athlete does it in much quicker time than your grandma, but they all have it in common. And when I start using that test and first starting off as pass fail, and now it's for the last 15 or 18 years, it's been quantifiable. It pretty much is unbeatable because it's patterned after kinesiology. I didn't invent it. I just invented what I call for the scoring. So within the last 15 or 18 years, I brought it out to sport, and I am a former high-level wiffle ball player, glorified wiffle ball player. Certainly didn't play at any kind of professional ranks, but I'm a huge baseball fan, and I began to use it and applying it to baseball, and that's kind of where we sit here today. Area Scouts, Lance Baldwin, who I believe is on this call, is the CEO of Area Scouts, was a patient of mine, and he came into my clinic having been to many different therapists, including some of the higher known ones in the city around Boston. And when his back went out, it was a trip to the emergency room. And applying these features, these techniques, Lance Baldwin hasn't been to the hospital except for the birth of his son for a couple months ago, for his back anyway. So we began talking. He's like, look, I got this thing. I'm like, well, what's this thing? So I got this thing, this math, this algorithm. I'm like, I went to Northeastern. What's an algorithm? So he's kind of explaining to me. And I said, well, what about the player's health? Like, how are you going to, everyone's got stats. What about, you can't improve someone unless you improve their movement. And thus, here we are today. We'll talk about Area Scouts, about this algorithmic movement, which essentially this platform has everyone's statistics and metrics, but at the end of the day, from my side, has a game score. And that score essentially is the player's ability to stay healthy. As a New York Yankee fan with 37 people on the disabled list last year, that caused me anger to flip over tables of hamstring and groin and all these preventable, and even Tommy John, all these preventable injuries were happening. And it's because these players don't move right. They don't move right in Little League. They don't move right in Babe Ruth. They don't move right in high school. They certainly don't move right in the major leagues. So that's how Area Scouts has come about. I'll be doing this podcast weekly as part of an educational series. And that's enough about me. I have on the call today two good friends of mine, one from Massachusetts and one from Pennsylvania that are here. We'll start furthest away from me. Jason Aspito owns Backyard University in York, Pennsylvania, and great facility there. It's an old schoolhouse, so he's got the whole gymnasium. Ceilings like 25 feet high, and all turfed. And Jason and I have done a few camps together. Jason,
no air conditioning though.
Yeah, no air conditioning. Well, I don't think Freire has air conditioning either.
It's in the office.
So Jason played baseball at an extremely high level, making it all the way up to AAA. And I'll let him tell you a little about himself. I was supposed to have some stuff from my intern, but as you can see, Mike, this 2 hours, I got nothing. I'm just going to go with it. Also on the call, I have Mike Freire, who I met in 1996 or 7, playing in a men's league baseball. Mike is a former Marine. I thank him for his service. He owns the Farm Baseball Performance Institute in Waltham, Massachusetts, which also doesn't have air conditioning. Great place with also has physical therapy and strength and conditioning in it. And I got these two guys on to talk about hitting. They're both hitting instructors, and we're going to kind of go over how really human movement plays into hitting. So I will introduce Jason Aspito first and let him say a couple things, and we can then Michael, and then we'll just kind of have a round table about hitting. So Jason, you're up, buddy.
What's happening? Thanks for having me. Jason Aspito. I'm originally from Chicago. Got drafted by the White Sox twice out of high school and college. Elected to go. I played baseball for Augie Garrido at Texas and then Frank Cruz at Loyola Marymount. Big passion for baseball. Also very passionate about how the human body moves. I believe I could have probably prevented some injuries throughout the course of my career, which may have changed. Maybe I got a sniff at the big leagues at some point, but I'm all about keeping my players healthy and making them better players. So naturally, of course, Kevin wanted to show off some magic, voodoo that we met, and he showed me something that I was blown away with. And I was like, we need to start to do a camp or do something together, bring him in New York. So I did that twice, and it's been great, learning a lot and improving players.
Cool, Jason. Michael?
Mike Freire, here in Boston, born and raised in Boston, still in Boston. My facility is just outside in Waltham, Massachusetts, the Farm Baseball Performance Institute. I'm 45, played baseball my entire life. I think what's most relevant as it pertains to this is really my coaching. Why I got into it. Like Kevin, like Jason, always been fascinated with human body movement. And it started with when I was very young. I remember I heard a term that didn't sit well with me was I heard natural power hitter. And I was, not a big fan of believing in magic or mysticism and understanding that there had to be some way, something that someone was doing in order to hit a ball farther. And by the way, a lot of times the natural power hitters were oftentimes smaller than some of their teammates. And that's what got me interested in mechanics, biomechanics, how the body moves. Baseball's a skill sport. You can learn how to be good. Okay. To be great, you need talent, but you can learn how to be good. It's a unique sport in the sense that the defense has the ball, you're on offense and you're in a reactive position. So mechanics are really important. And so I just became fascinated with it. I remember reading The Science of Hitting when I was young. I was probably 11, 12 years old. And first sort of run it, understanding rotational mechanics, and which Kevin talks about a lot. I talk about a lot, stationary axis and rotating around a post. And then, years later, as I got into coaching, I just, I say I'm forever a student, just constantly trying to learn more and more about the sport, learn about human body movement. And I'm just fascinated by it. So I teach it on my program, and my facility is all about development. It's all about getting our players better, getting them. And this is how I came to Area Scouts is, getting our players sort of showcased and being visible to collegiate coaches to get them to play at the highest level they possibly can, whether that be, varsity high school, Division III college, D1 or pro. And that's my passion. And I love it. I love every day of it.
Cool, Mike. Thanks. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about social media and how social media is, where we see it with kids and learning things. So I'm gonna bring that question to Jason first, since without mentioning any names, Jason, I know you and I have had some wars, not with each other, on our friend Twitter, against certain individuals here and there. Talk to me about social media and talk to me about what you're seeing there and how often the information is just flat out wrong.
More often than it should be. There is no one set way to be a hitter. There is, and as I'm learning and continue to learn, a way the human body has to move. And if that's not right, you'll never hit the way you're capable of hitting. So for me, I know there's times where there's a difference between swing mechanics and hitting, and hitting to me is a lot of approach versus swing, and there's a lot of guys out there that think they have it figured out. And if they had it figured out, we've yet to see a guy hit over 400 in the big leagues. Actually, batting averages are going down. Home runs are going up, but we're sacrificing some things to do that. Where strikeouts are going up through the roof. So if everybody's got this thing called hitting figured out, like Kevin said, when it came to physical therapy, when kids are coming back slower or from rehab than they used to, or why are our numbers going down? So I just don't understand it.
Good. So, Michael, what about you? What do you hear on this? I mean, social media.
So let me preface this first by saying, don't ever be afraid to stop me or reel me in, because I will rant. I'm a ranter.
Bring it on, baby. That's what we're here for. This is free speech. Well,
all right.
At least we think. Or you think. I don't know. Go ahead.
So with social media, to be honest with you, I try to stay away from it. I'll watch it. I'm a voyeur.
I see you on there. I don't see you on there at all.
Yeah, I'm in the background. I'm seeing you. You just don't see me. So I'm a Twitter voyeur. And same with Instagram. Look, there's tons of stuff out there, and pretty much everyone I follow, it has something to do with it's usually mechanical. And I agree 100% with Jason. You can teach a swing in a cage, you can't teach a hitter in a cage. There's a big part of that that's mental and approach, whatever. But what I pay attention to a lot of is swing mechanics, and yes, there's a lot of things. It's kind of interesting because in a lot of ways, I think guys that teach the way hitting like that I do, we've been vindicated with analytics and showing that you want to put the ball in the air, you want to lift it, you don't want to hit ground balls, etc. But just like anything else, it's gone crazy. So, having a slight increase, a slight incline in your swing to meet the plane of the pitch has gone to like having a 30-degree incline. And as Jason sees, you get a lot of strikeouts that way. So I see tons of things, and the way I look at it is this. Jason said it too. There's a lot of ways to teach it. I see it this way. I see that stances are like snowflakes. You hardly ever see two alike. And I'm sure a lot of players as kids, you knew every stance on the team that you followed. But when they get into launch position, there's so many key what do you call them? Sort of checkpoints, right? So like where the hands are, generally speaking, where the front elbow is, generally speaking, their width, their base, all of that, right? Centered. No one's leaning forward. No one's overly leaning back, etc. So there's key check markers at launch position, and hitters will look nearly identical in the very beginning, and then the first, if you break the swing down to third, their early rotation, their first third, even to contact. And then you'll see some differences too in the last third, right? How they finish. And I used to get into arguments with people, not on social media, about Ichiro, because people used to say that Ichiro, he's a hands hitter, and he wasn't. He hit with his body just like every other big league hitter. The difference was how he finished. He was a righty lefty. He was front side dominant. He was bottom hand dominant because of that, and he was lefty, so he would be pulling off to first base when he finished. So I believe all these things passionately, and I see things on social media that make me bananas, but it's hard to win. You know what I mean? To engage sometimes, I just don't find it worth it. But I think that may be changing soon because we're getting up to here.
Okay.
I would say I think the pendulum's starting to swing back a little bit.
Think so?
I do.
So, guys, will we ever see a George Brett? A guy who could hit for power, never struck out, hit behind runners?
All you have middle relievers throw 98.
Yeah, could be. I mean, is that what you think it is? So I mean, I look at baseball now as being backyard home run derby. It's either a 3-run home run, or unless you're in the playoffs, and the playoffs, just like I guess playoffs in hockey, are two totally different games. But it's either a home run, a strikeout. I mean, there's no hitting behind runners. And I'm not. I'm certainly a fan of the bunt. If you want to give up an out, I'll take it all day long. I'm sure Mike Freire would agree with that. But what is this high-level hitting, and what is long? This terms I've never heard. I'm sure people haven't heard before. What does it all mean? What is launch angle, and what does that mean? What does that mean to the parent who's like, oh, my kid's launching? I mean, exit velocity, yeah, we know that's the speed of the ball coming off the bat. But what's this launch angle? What's good? What's bad? What's spin rate? Kind of explain what this is, because even I don't know what the hell it is.
You mind if I take the first part of this?
I mean, we only have like an hour and a half, but go ahead.
Here's why launching is important. I've been doing this a long time. We've sent a bunch of my players to college at all different levels. I've yet to have one college coach call me up and say, "Hey, tell me about your boy John Smith. I heard he's tremendous at hitting ground balls up the middle." Not once, right? They want doubles, they want triples, they want home runs, right? I mean, and that's production. That's a productive hitter. I mean, you talk to Medici, he's going to tell you the same thing. And so, in order to do that, you got to put the ball in the air. And so, the plane of a pitch on an average fastball comes at a -8 to -10 degrees downward plane. Curveballs, sliders go between 12 and 16 degrees. Okay, sorry, 10 to 16 degrees, depending on how good they are. So, in order to stay in the zone, stay behind the ball, stay in the contact area as long as possible, your swing has to at least match that. If you're hitting the ball and driving through, this is the ball and this is the bat, right?
Yep.
You get the ball through the bat, you're going to create backspin. Backspin creates loft creates distance, distance equals home runs, doubles, triples. So the launch angle is important. So, and what we're learning now, thanks to things like Rapsodo, is that it's not just the exit velo in the launch, it's the spin. You have to have a good spin to go along with that to get the carry. So it's a really important, not to go bananas about it, but it is an important stat.
Jason, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, the professional swing is the only high level swing I know of. So I don't know that anybody should be saying high level swing. That you want to see a high level swing, watch a big leaguer. Watch a pro guy hit. That's a high level swing. There are basics to swing mechanics. I would say with launch angle is a coined term. Launch angle has always been around. Like Mike said, college coaches want to see guys with production. Production's turned into launch angle for some reason. As far as how it's worded throughout the travel ball industry and it's just a coined term. There's a launch angle on a bunt, so every swing's launch angle. Has a launch angle. It's really, know where you're at with each hitter, where they're at in their development, because, teaching what I would say the high level swing to an 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old is the wrong way to go about it. I believe you teach them how to hit the ball hard. Power at their age is hitting a ball hit hard enough that an infielder can't move 2 steps to make a play, and an outfielder 5 steps. That's and then we go from there and develop beyond that. But I think there's too many people trying to teach this swing that kids are just not capable of doing because of where they're at in their process. One, they don't move correctly, and 2, they're not strong enough. So that's where I'm at with it.
Okay. So one of the things of my, not really my laws, but I kind of coin it, I'll keep it as mine, is the proximal to distal rule, meaning that we have to move from our core out. That's just how we're built. That's undeniable. That's unchallengeable. That's 1,000% provable. Yet, I see something on Twitter. Let's see if we can get the camera. Let's see, what is this doing? Michael, can you explain what this is about? This whole wrist.
It looks like you're using a shake weight.
Can you? Oh yeah, right. Is it because I see this right? Someone's got something and they're flipping, right? And they're trying to tell me that the faster I flip my hands, the quicker I'm going to catch up to that fastball. It's coming in at 97 miles an hour, and I can't. Like I said, I'm just a wiffle ball guy. But can either one of you guys explain what that is? What's the purpose of that drill, and where in God's name did that come from?
That's the over obsession with launch angle.
Okay.
Launch angle is like, I would never look at that for a younger kid, right? It's something that really, in my mind, it has more to do with your finish and your hand path than anything. So getting to rotation and using your body, using your lower half to swing the bat is more important. This thing has become where it's, you want that. Is that what you're talking about? This thing where you get the –
Well, I think the person or people who
Gary Sheffield was doing this because it was habitual, and he had very good timing to get here before he swung every time. But I think you're talking about, you see like on Instagram a lot of these guys doing like right, that type of thing.
They're trying to tell me that the swing starts there at the wrist, and I kind of, am
Don't talk to those people anymore. That's
curse them, but then, I get, killed by a bunch of other people who don't know what they're talking about. So, Jason, well, I mean, you may have been in on one of these. Can you tell me what the shake weight? That's a good.
I actually love the shake weight thing. I never even thought of it that way, but that's about as it.
You've
Uh,
used the shake weight before? Does your wife have a shake weight?
no, no. I mean, I've seen it, but
Very
but
good.
I remember the infomercial and all that. But
Yeah.
I don't recall any of our hitters, guys that I played with, ever just worried about that. Now, I had a bat tap when I played, similar to Sheffield, and that was just kind of a timing mechanism. It wasn't. It wasn't. Hey, this is the way I want to start my swing. It was more, hey, this is going to help keep me back. Each hitter is going to be determining how they
This
get
was
to
a
launch.
calming effect for us.
So,
yeah. I think I want to make sure we're talking about the same thing, Kevin, because I think what Jason's saying too, and you see a lot of this in terms of, as he said, is timing.
Yeah.
Getting your hands back, creating some separation. But I think you're talking about like training, right?
he's talking about a drill that we've seen, and that's all they work on is snapping their bat back and from the wrist.
What
From
I'm
the wrist.
that these people, coaches, hitting coaches, liquor set, whatever they are,
Yep.
telling players that when we initiate the swing, it starts from the hands. So I've even gone to as far as to say that,
you won't find one big league hitter swing like that.
because it doesn't start. It's impossible to start there.
So Mike, would you agree that the barrel should come last in the swing?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then to Kevin, to your point, so if the barrel needs to come last, how could the hands start the swing?
Well, the hands can't start the swing because
Exactly.
we have to something for the hands to move. And that's just basic kinesiology. But so that brings me to this. There are a lot of people with lots of Twitter followers, thousands of them, and not only from hitting, I've seen really cool things that guys run like the 60-yard sprint and take the baseball and throw it into the wall. I want to have my business card to come when they need Tommy John surgery, but so we'll leave that for another show. So guys, tell me, like, human movement. You guys have been educated a little bit, more than a little bit. What are the key things that you see and, the parents can take home? Let's say that adolescent hitter, that, 16 and under player. What are you seeing as far as basic movement flaws? And, there are probably, a few. Jason, what do you see that's common?
16, you said? 16 under?
8 to 16. I mean, what do you see in that adolescent kind of, that's common to everybody?
So I would say every hitter I've had come in, once I've learned they can't squat. Nobody can squat properly.
And when you say that, explain that to people. What does that mean?
In the proper sequence. I actually believe I was one of the first ones to answer your question properly and show you a good squat. Reason being is I worked and trained with a guy who trains guys for the NFL draft and set records for bench press. But, the squat has to initiate from the hips and the core. Or and I said it to you that if you watch a toddler, and I had a 3-year-old or 2-year-old at the time, and I said, she does a better squat than I do. And you laughed and you're like, you're one of the first people to ever say that and know that. And it all had to do with hearing it before. And ever since that moment is when I was like, I need to learn more about how this body works. So squatting, and I'm sure there's a couple parents on the call that know their kids struggle with squatting properly.
Michael, what do you think?
I agree 1,000,000,000% on that. And that's partly, it's oftentimes not the kid's fault. It's because since they were, 4 years old, they've been telling you to bend their knees. We see it all the time, having their weight on their quads and rather than setting like back and and to Jason's point, like they really can't do a squat, like not just do it in the batter's box. They can't perform a squat. And so, we try to explain that it's really basic human body movement, right? I mean, we're born to move that way, but I think you were the one that told me this, and it made all the sense in the world. Is everything we do sitting down. We sit down to do everything, to write, to go when we go to school, when we're driving, we're eating, etc. We lose the strength in the hips. So I think that's the number one thing. And the second thing I would say is if I had 100 kids come in the facility in a week, I would bet that 80+% of them overuse their bottom arm, and they shrug up the front shoulder and pull at the ball rather than turning. So I think those are the two biggest things from what I see for youth players, and not relaxing up their body, not using their hips, the core to rotate their body and let their hands barrel come last.
So a chapter in my book that'll eventually get published in about 10 years. It's only taken me, again, Northeastern, N stands for knowledge. But the worst advice ever given in the history of mankind is to bend your knees first. It's ruined every athlete in the world. It's ruined the stolen base. It's ruined. I mean, you just have to look at, again, going back to the Yankee, as a Yankee fan, you just have to look at a guy who probably could hit 75 home runs easy, maybe with one hand, and that would be Gary Sanchez, who bends both knees over his toes at the most premier major league system in the history of baseball, and no one corrects that. He's on the disabled list with groin, hamstring, back, hip, and can't hit a fastball that's above his belly button. And the only reason is that he puts himself in a mechanical disadvantage every time he gets in the batter's box. And no hitting coach fixes that. And he will continue to do it, and he will continue to be injured.
Well, we see kids all the time, Kevin, too, that it's funny because you'll see all this stuff, in the batter. They have their little routine. They do this, and you look at the lower half, and it's like frozen. Sometimes if the knees aren't forward, it's knees locked. They're on the outside part of the feet, and just it's literally in reverse of what would want them to focus on. And you're right. I mean, there's countless coaches that I think go along the way. I mean, we see that from high school players. We see it. I've seen it in college. My college players sometimes too. So, yeah, it's a problem. That's for sure.
Yeah, they shouldn't be. I mean, they shouldn't be too alarmed. I've had 3 Olympic athletes fail the squat test. So it's a pandemic. Not to beat a bad word down. So
I know it's a hitting conversation, but Mike dealing with it, I deal with it all the time. You're going to see it in fielding and base running. So leadoff position, easy way to see if a kid can get in a squat properly. Most are terrible at it. And fielding, because it's always been butt down versus butt back, and you see those knees go first right away.
So the last topic we're going to talk about, which is part of the squat and is my pet peeve of every athletic movement from golf to pitching to hitting, is the back foot. And the pinky toe and getting off of that, and the dum-dums, and there are many. I'm a former dum-dum who put thousands of patients in orthotics that no one needs. Okay, and got everyone off of their arch, not to the pinky toe, and probably ruined many a career. And that's so. Mike, we'll start with you. Talk to me about the back foot and what you see and correcting it and how that really affects or negatively your hitters.
Yeah, I see. It's interesting because a lot of times they start out properly. They started okay, and I think it's most kids have a basic understanding of what an athletic base looks like, in the sense that the feet should be wider than your shoulders should fit inside your feet, right? So I've seen kids that oftentimes start out okay without going through the proper sequencing, so it's not perfect, but they start out like okay. But then you see a lot of these kids that they have leg kicks, and I don't mind a leg kick, but they don't know what they're doing it for, and they're doing it for the wrong reasons, and they are literally ruining that posture, rocking to the outside pinky toe side of their foot. Their knee gets over their back leg. And then, the chances of them landing in a good position are, next to impossible at that point. So it's we see that a lot too. And these are all sort of related. So the thing, the proper, it's posture in general, right? and it's the hip, the squat stinks, the back foot stinks, the shoulders are over engaged. It's all the above. And the shoulders just come from, I think, just a life long, hitting with the hands type of situation.
Sure.
Specifically the back foot. It's hard. It's obviously what we want to teach is to keep the arch side of the foot down, keep the knee inside of the foot. And, I would even teach our kids to, negatively load into that back leg.
So, 100%. And I always taught the knee inside the foot, but kids would still get to that pinky toe because they rock back because, as a player, when we were taught to load, it was load by going back versus sinking. And when you do that, it's almost like a rocking chair at that point. All you can do is fall forward. No control of that forward move with that.
Yeah, for those people who don't know, from a martial arts perspective, which I may have dabbled in that, to throw anybody down of any size, you just bring them over their pinky toe, and I could take someone 500 pounds and throw them down, or someone 100 pounds can throw me down. You have no balance, and that's one of the major movement flaws, and that comes from, weak hamstrings, glutes, the whole nine yards. So it is all related. So guys, I want to leave as we wrap up here with, my three pillars of that to perform any sport. You need to be able to scapular press, perform a proper squat, and walk. What I mean by walk is if you told someone to go straight and make a left-hand turn, that core would turn on the dime. If you master those three movements, you can do anything in the world athletically. Jason, what are your keys to hitting? Give me like two or three things that are your
keys to hitting.
Are your bread and butter movements or things that have to get done that you wanna your pillars. What do you do?
Right. So
that building in Pennsylvania, what's going on over there?
So I've been big in saying sit and walk. Sit, walk, and then with that, to make it simple on kids because they still want to keep coming forward, you're slamming their brakes. So once your foot's into the ground, that's brakes, and now that walk, right? That turn that you talk about. So I'm either saying, to keep it simple, show your number to the catcher, type of thing to get that same move that you're talking about. But for an 8-year-old to understand how to turn their backside, hey, if I show my number, because we all have baseball jerseys at some point, hopefully, and get them to understand that, from the back, not their chest. See what I'm saying? So we're turning from back to front, not front to back, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Mikey, what do you got?
Let's say the first is efficiency, to get them to move efficiently using the bigger muscles, right? Using their legs and core to swing, not overusing their hands is number two. Like, I see hands come out early all the time, and really letting the hands come blast. And the example I used, I think one day that you liked is, swinging with your hands is like shooting a basketball and then jumping in the air. And that's something I use all the time, because it helps the kids sort of relate. And then the last thing I think is really just to be diligent because, something like the feet that we just talked about, Jason, I'm sure you see this too. A lot of times it's hard to get kids to believe that thing. They think it's a little thing. They're like, dude, my knee, you put my knee 2 inches different than where it was, They think it's a little thing. So to be diligent and to stick to their feet and their posture and literally just being efficient. And that's, it's not easy because, they got a bat in their hands. They got to hit a ball with that bat and you're telling your hands not to do it from what they've been doing for a long time. So
it's a little different from when I came up through when a coach would tell in the same at bat, hey, throw your hands.
Right.
And the very next pitch, keep your hands back. So that's confusing the hitters.
Right.
If we can eliminate the hands as much as possible, that makes a heck of a lot of sense. And I would have had a better understanding what I was trying to do. That's for dang sure.
Me too, honestly. And that's it. Yeah.
Thank you. So there are some people actually on the call. I don't know if they came because of you two studs, but they are here. I'm going to unmute everybody. And if people would like to ask some questions, you guys will take some questions, right?
Yeah.
Unmuting people. Does anybody have speak up? You can also, there's a chat down here. If people are too shy, you can ask some questions. I have people on this call as far as Nevada, if I'm looking correctly, Mr. Jeremy. How you doing, buddy? So if anyone has any questions, concerns, or challenges, to hear them. No, nothing. Zip. All right. So, like I said, I'm doing this as part of the Area Scouts platform. If you're interested in that, that you can reach us at app.areascouts.com. Unbelievable platform for student athletes, and you can actually make some money doing it. I'll be doing this every Thursday at this time with a different topic. We might do some pitching. Part of the Area Scouts platform, we've got a couple of former and current major leaguers on the platform. One is my Connecticut brethren, Josh Side, who has pitched for the Houston Astros for a couple of years. So he was injured.
Kev, you just got how different is the softball swing from baseball swing? I think it's the exact same.
I was going to say, that's not
the exact same mechanics. I actually had at one point a softball hitting guru tell me that they're completely different swings, and he teaches a softball swing, but he teaches the swing that Albert Pujols uses. And I was a little confused because I was pretty sure Albert Pujols played baseball. So,
as far as I know, he might.
So he's even a better softball player.
Michael, what do you think?
100% it's the same swing. And you know what? Chris Bustos is the one that finally changed it, because I think the swings were different 25 years ago. But finally, you look at all the better college teams in softball now, they all have.
So I would say this: softball players that I see do the wrist flip thing, but they do it differently. They flip it over the top. Like they roll their wrists and hit themselves in the shoulder harder than anybody I've ever seen. So that's a bad softball swing.
There was a follow-up comment that baseball coaches always told this young lady that the softball swing was shorter.
Shorter.
Guys, what do you think?
Shorter to the ball. I mean, you want to be short to the ball in either sport, right? It's about being long through contact. So I don't think you can be any, if you're doing it right, I don't really think you can be much shorter. In order to, you want to get in the way of the catch and move as fast as possible, right? So as you're turning, the barrel comes in front of the mitt and you stay through the zone. Same goes for softball, in my opinion.
Cool. Thank you, Ashley, for that question. Anybody else before I that was like a last minute Hail Mary right there. So, like I said, I think next week's guest will be Josh Side, who's with the program. He's a former pitcher. Actually had a couple of good years with in the majors before he was injured. And that's it. You're going to probably hear some controversial stuff because I am a jerk. A couple ladies who are laughing. That's not nice, Elena. And but I think that you have to be, because there's too many PT robots out there. And some things I like to close with. Tommy John. There was actually someone actually named Tommy John, who's a player. Okay. He returned to baseball in 8 months, pitched 256 innings. Okay, why is it taking 2 years now for them to come back? Why can only about 3 outfielders in the major leagues reach home plate on the fly for their outfield position? All right. These are all questions that, why is the average major league career less than an NFL running back? Why? And these are all questions that I have. If sports medicine is supposed to be better and all this stuff's supposed to, it's not. So the results are not there. It's not working. It hasn't been working for many years because the players that I grew up, the guys who smoked cigarettes after the game, were much better athletes than today. Okay, they were healthier. The Dave Winfields, the Jesse Barfields, the Reggie Jacksons, the Bo Jacksons. Okay, they could actually throw the ball to home plate. All right, and they're not doing all this specialized training. So something is wrong, and I'm hopefully here to correct the wrong. And what I think the wrong is that as a building, if every athlete is a building, there's a lot of work being done in the penthouse. We got nice TVs up there. We got surround sound, but you have to have a parking garage. And I'm the parking garage because nobody wants to buy a building with a bad foundation, and nobody wants to buy a building without a penthouse. So you need both of them hand in hand. And as for the physical therapist, if we're trusted to fix the injured, imagine what we can do for the healthy. So that's it, guys. Thank you for listening. This podcast is going to get posted somewhere soon, but I'm sure you'll hopefully see it on Apple at some point. But I want to thank my guest, Mike Freire, again from the Farm Baseball Institute. Mike, do you want to sound out your contact information if somebody wants to get a hold of you?
Sure. Our website's the Farm BPI for baseballperformanceinstitute.com. We do have an Instagram, same thing, Farm BPI, Facebook, yada, yada, et cetera. We even have Twitter. Yeah, we're in Waltham, Massachusetts. I think my email and everything is already on the platform. I'm assuming everyone here is on Slack.
Awesome.
Everything's up there. And come visit.
All right. Jason, you want to tell them about Yad University?
Thanks for having me. Backyard University is the name of my place. My Twitter, Aspito28, or Backyard U 2012. I don't do the Instagram thing as much. I probably need to, but
You're old.
I'm old school. I barely got on Twitter a few years ago, or 2 years ago. So it is what it is. I don't have time for that.
Hey, everybody. Thank you to my guests, and thank you guys for taking time out to listen. I hope this was, you learned a little thing, because if you're not learning, you're dying. And see you guys next week.
Thanks for having me, Kev.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Take care.